Hi, I'm Sid Dobrin. In this video, I'm going to talk about teaching Ta-Nehisi Coates' Nothing is So Necessary for a Young Man. I'll be talking about teaching his essay in the context of first-year writing, and I'll be addressing the essay specifically from a rhetorical situational approach and thinking specifically about this piece as a response. When I teach Coates' essay, I usually start by asking students some basic key questions. For whom does Coates write? What else do you know about this situation in which he participates? What is Coates' thesis? Where does he state it? How does he state it? That is, I want to encourage students to start their own responses to Coates by looking at the situation and then developing a strong thesis designed for that situation. So I start by asking them to look for the same kinds of things Coates does to establish his thesis and his position in the situation. Coates' essay is an interesting kind of response because in one sense he's responding to the situation of his father and Citizen E urging him to read War and Peace. But Coates uses that particular situation as an avenue toward addressing how he reads Western literature through an Afrocentric lens. But even that isn't really Coates' primary point, and perhaps that is why I teach this essay as such a wonderful piece of writing to respond to. It shows Coates' ecology. It shows his process for thinking from the immediate, the singular, to the larger, more complex. Coates' essay, that is not really about reading War and Peace. It's about aesthetics, about synthesis and connection. So what I try to get my students to see about Coates' essay is that response can lead to more critical thought, to more complex response. Coates writes not just his response to overlapping situations, but he exposes his thinking through difficult subjects. And I think that's what makes this piece so useful in terms of writing to respond, the idea of exposure. In many ways, writing to respond is an act of exposing. Response works to expose parts of the text or situation or whatever is being responded to, certainly. But more so, it exposes the writer and the writer's position in a situation. Exposure, of course, is a risk. To expose is to make vulnerable. Coates makes Tolstoy vulnerable, makes Western literature vulnerable, and the entrenchment of aesthetics vulnerable. But he also exposes his father's vulnerabilities, his own vulnerabilities, and perhaps most important, he makes the relationship between the Western literary tradition and the African American experience vulnerable. These are the rhetorical moves I want students to see in Coates' writing and how those moves make his response effective. Coates' essay is ripe for conversation, both in terms of content analysis and situational analysis. It is also a wonderful piece for talking with students about how separating situation and content sometimes serves little purpose. Coates' essay is a great example to talk about synthesis, relations, and power. So, those are some of the key aspects of how I teach Ta-Nehisi Coates' Nothing is So Necessary for a Young Man. You'll probably have other approaches you find useful too that you might want to share as well. So how do you teach this essay? Post a response to this video, either in the comments section or as a video response, and share your thoughts on teaching this essay. Thanks for watching.